Hello there. My name is Endeavorance. I'm wearing fingerless gloves, and my go-to motto is I want to rehumanize the internet. What does that even mean? I have been on the internet in a very interactive capacity for a long time. It's my job to build stuff for the internet. I have worked for companies that you definitely know the name of, things that you use on a daily basis. I've got the inside look at how the internet works, and I've been doing it for a long time. I've also spent a long time thinking about communities on the internet and specifically building websites that are for communities on the internet. I got my start as early as 13 on an online community that I became a moderator for, then an administrator for, then a developer for, and all of that to say, I've got a lot of experience on this particular topic. So, as you might imagine, given the current state of the internet, I don't love it. Let's start with a brief history and just discuss a few terms. Let's go all the way back to Web 1.0. What does that even mean? So, glossing over just like a ton of stuff, let's just go right to the email personal homepage era of the internet. So, there was this concept that the way the internet should work is individual users should each have their own domain. They should each have their own website in which they can say, this is my personal homepage. Here's all of my stuff. If you want to see anything that I'm doing, here's where it is. It's at www.mywebsite.whatever. As you can imagine, this worked great for companies and organizations and whatnot, just informational stuff and people who could afford to understand what the heck the internet was. But it wasn't great for the average user. The average user is not about to spin up and maintain their own server, and beyond that, figure out how to make a website in the first place. That's just a thing people don't want to have to do. Hell, even in the tech space, tech people don't want to have to manage their own servers. We have managed server hosts for that. I don't manage my own servers often. I'll just go online and rent a server in the cloud. It's definitely easier. I acknowledge that. But before we move on to the implications of what that means, let's talk about Web 1.0 technologies that we actually still use today. One of them is email. Email is a simple service that just sends messages across domains. It's used constantly in business, and although it's mostly dominated by marketing emails these days, it's still a wonderfully useful tool, and the entire internet speaks its language. Another example of this that's maybe lesser known to most people is IRC, Internet Relay Chat, and it's what a lot of modern chat software is based on. Slack and Discord are basically just reimaginings of IRC. In fact, I believe both of them were built on top of IRC to begin with, including Twitch chat was also built on top of IRC to begin with. IRC is another example of an early web technology. It was a standard, it's a protocol, it's an open concept that anyone can use, and all you need to do is have a server to host it. It's pretty simple. What happened? So if Web 1.0 was you manage your own stuff, everybody has their own server, what's Web 2.0? Well, Web 1.0 was largely read-only. Like I said, informational websites, stuff like that. Web 2 was saying, hey, what if we made everything more interactive and made it easier to use for the average consumer? And that's where we started to see things like blog hosts, like blogspot.com, Tumblr, stuff like that. We saw services that cropped up and said, you make an account on our website and you can publish on our website. You don't need to know how to use a server. You just need to log in and hit publish. And we saw this amazing crop of services come up that were just replacing all this stuff that people once had to have digital expertise to be able to actually do. Now you just have to fill out a form and hit submit. Honestly, cool. Honestly, chill. Like, that's good. It makes sense, right? I think that's still how we should structure stuff to a degree, and I'll get more specific on that. But that was not inherently bad. Hey, I'm a tech person. I'm going to set you up something so that it's easier for you to engage in this really excellent communications medium. We also saw here the very beginnings of social media. We saw Twitter crop up, we saw MySpace, then Facebook. All this stuff came out of the blue, and it was all following this same principle. We'll host a service, you create an account, and you can publish content on our website. And that was fine for a while until a little thing called capitalism set in. So, hilariously enough, Elon Musk is actually to blame for a lot of this, but PayPal basically proved out the social network concept. The concept of people are going to be where people are. So let's make platforms and sort of lock people into those platforms and expand them and use the fact that everyone's on a given platform to bring everyone in. This started sort of with PayPal, and it moved on to a whole bunch of other services. And a lot of the same people are behind all of that. Fast forward a few years, and where we are now is that we have people who get effectively digitally murdered. Deplatforming exists. If you get kicked off of one of these social media networks, you are effectively, for all intents and purposes in the general public's eye, removed from the internet. Deplatforming exists now, and it shouldn't have to exist. And not for the reasons that most people are probably saying around the terms of like, oh, free speech and all that stuff. No, absolutely, companies should be able to boot you off their service for being an asshat. What I'm getting at is deplatforming shouldn't exist because these massive platforms shouldn't exist. There's a hot debate around whether or not there should be federal laws that require companies to better police, more or less, their users. Should companies that are social media sites that publish user content be held responsible legally for the content that is posted on their website? I'm not going to get too deep into that with my own opinions on that right now, but the fact that that's even a question to begin with, and typically these regulations, these proposed regulations, are targeted at companies that have more than 50 million users. 50 million users. That is a small number for massive social network scale. That is way too big for organizing whole human beings. One of the core lessons that I learned from my time spent building and maintaining online communities is that a strong set of rules and an active moderation team helps keep everything very smooth. And I mean a strong set of rules. You are not allowed to harass anyone. Just straight up not. You harass another member, you get banned permanently. And that's okay because our small little community is a small little community. And just like any real world community with humans in it, if someone is being a jackass, they are removed. These massive social media platforms basically want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to have as many users as possible, unregulated. Just we own millions and millions, if not billions, of accounts of user data. And we manage all of these interactions, and we get to make money off of all of them. And also, we aren't responsible for keeping it civil. They have generated a problem. I don't care about which side politically wants to try to use these companies as a political cudgel to attack the other side. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the fact that these companies who make money off of having millions, if not billions of users, then want to turn around and say that they're not responsible for that content, or they should have these exemptions because they're basically a utility. Well, guess what? Utilities should be owned by the public, not private companies. The utility here is the internet, not your service. The internet is a utility. Your service is just a service. And we should not be allowing these massive social sites to host this many people. It's unfeasible. It's unrealistic, and it's absurd. Never before in human history have we had this level of connectivity, and it's honestly amazing. I think it's really, really amazing. But humans weren't built to manage having contact with millions and millions of other people. We were not built to have a platform with which to spew every single thought we've ever had into the ether, and everyone else can see it forever. No. Now, we've talked about Web 1, we've talked about Web 2. You might think that I'm building towards talking about Web 3. And again, I don't want to take more time than is necessary because plenty of people have made videos about this subject matter. Web 3 is nothing. Web 3 is a scam, and not even just for the whole, you're going to lose money if you engage with whatever crypto. Web 3 is just a hype machine for tech investors to make a bunch of money and extract value. It is legitimately nothing. It is cultish and weird. And it's effectively trying to solve the cultural problems of the Web 2.0 world by applying more capitalism, which caused the social problems in the Web 2.0 world to begin with. So no, Web 3 is nothing. It's nothing. A man much smarter than I, Moxie Marlinspike, who created Signal and is generally well respected in the cryptography world, posted a really excellent blog post talking about a very similar thing. Web 1.0 had trouble insofar as people don't want to manage their own servers. Well, to properly engage with the vision of Web 3, everyone would have to actually manage their own server anyway. I don't want to get too deep into it. I promise I know what I'm talking about. I spent the past several years of my life working for a financial technology company that does this kind of stuff and needs to be on top of all this. It's nothing. Go watch Line Goes Up, The Problem with NFTs by Folding Ideas. That video is amazing if you want to learn everything there is to know about Web3 stuff. And that is the end of my discussion about Web3. Web3 is not the solution. We already have all of the tools that we need to create a better internet. A better internet used to exist. We just need to go back to it. And the way that we go back to it is a cultural shift, not a technological shift. Unfortunately, that cultural shift is just not going to happen without regulation. So here we are. Where do we find ourselves? We find ourselves in a world in which we have these massive platforms that are way too big for their own good, that make no sense from a social structure perspective, and have so much money that they can effectively ignore any legal ramifications of anything they do. A social platform caused a civil war. Like, that's a thing. Meanwhile, we have politicians who are so old and out of touch that they have no idea how to even begin approaching these topics. Any number of videos of politicians who are interviewing these tech people in front of Congress, and they're like, why did this app do this thing? And they're talking to the CEO of Google about an iPhone, and he's like, I don't know, that's not my product. And he just gets to sidestep that question because the senator is that stupid. And if they're not actually stupid, they're being willfully ignorant because they want to use the law as a cudgel. They want to use the law to say, hey, we need to make regulation so that Twitter kicks off the lefties because they're shutting down my racism on Twitter, and that's not okay because free speech. So as always, the solution is tear it all down. But what can you do as an individual to take a step? Well, for one, delete your Facebook. If you have a Facebook, delete it. Mark Zuckerberg does not deserve your data. And we've established a new societal norm that doesn't actually make sense. The keeping up with everyone that you've ever met in your entire life concept. You do not need to. You do not need to keep those tabs. And if you are worrying about losing contact with someone, well, SMS exists and other chat apps exist. You have ways of contacting people. Hey, guess what? Email exists. You can use email for general communication. It's okay. And I know that it's actually really difficult to move off of a platform because of that very strong network effect that I talked about earlier on in the video. I get it. But I promise you that you've been sold a bill of lies. When you're on the other side of having ditched that network effect, you realize how little it actually added to your life. And you can find alternatives. If people are not going to keep up with you because you're not on a given social platform, screw them. Why should you keep up with them? If they're not willing to put in the effort to take an extra tiny little step to keep up with you specifically, then what's even the point? From there, I honestly think a really good next step is don't use your real name online. That's how things used to be. Have a screen name. Go by that. My name's Endeavorance. I haven't said my real name anywhere on any of my stuff. I have an other social account history under a different screen name in which I've used my real name, and I'm tired of it. I don't want to do that anymore. Adding in the whole real name thing just adds a whole layer of this is a bunch of humans that we have on our platform, that this is a part of human life now. No, it's not. The internet is a part of human life. Yes, absolutely. Social networks are not a permanent fixture forever, and they do not have to be. They're going to change shape over time. We're already watching these, first crop of social network websites, your Facebooks, your Twitters and whatnot. They're already sundowning. Facebook is really hemorrhaging cash right now. Instagram is trying to imitate TikTok, and they're failing to do so. YouTube only really exists because no one has the storage space to compete with them. We're already watching them in crisis. From there, find an online community that you can call home, a forum, a chat server, something. Maybe hit up my Discord, endeavorance.camp/Discord. We're a wonderful place with wonderful people just hanging out, just being a community. That is the direction that I want to see us move back to. We had vibrant online communities, focused groups, not echo chambers because people wanted to be there. They weren't being caught up in it. They were choosing to be there. But these places allowed for good conversation, sharing in hobbies, and having reasonable just discourse in general, as opposed to these wild, massive platforms that don't want to boot people off because booting people off is a death sentence. Online communities should work for the online community. It should not be a profit model. I'm Endeavorance. I want to rehumanize the internet. I'm going to start talking about more stuff. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. Be well.